Here we go. Okay. People are coming in. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello. This is the second session of the day already. How are we flying through these? We're almost halfway done. That's crazy. The day is quick. But Bonnie, I'll let you, just because this is always your part. Cue us in.
This is my one part in the panel. I get to ask the question for the chat. So we already asked where everyone's coming in from, but tell us, are you going on vacation anywhere this year and where to?
Ooh.
I will say, I know we were just talking about Vegas earlier. I know I'm headed back to Vegas sometime later this year. Costa Rica, Boston.
I say vacation. Ooh. What's that?
Right? Yeah,
right. When have I travel 100 days a year, and is there ever an actual vacation?
No, it's always work. Not work.
That's true, because yeah, Jeff, you're headed out. Is it later this week? But it's your group trip, so it's like work.
Indeed. Well, it'll be. It's a good job to have. Yeah, no,
it's a good problem to have.
Yes,
on a Southern Italy cruise. We're really excited about it.
Ooh,
nice.
Ooh, that is nice.
Yeah. Tell us from all the people in the chat. I see Tokyo, Disney Tokyo.
Wow.
Cruising is happening this year.
Lots of cruises. Hawaii, Tahiti. Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, that's really, the Olympics.
I saw somebody said Olympics. Yeah.
I get to go there. We need to chat. Because there's a lot.
Meetup.
Yes.
USA.
Trava meetup. Oh man. Yeah. No, I know there's a lot of people saying that. Wait, we're allowed to go on vacation? Yes. You deserve it, you all.
You need to put your work stuff away. I know things would just melt down though if that happened.
I know, even though I feel like today is one of those days we're giving you kind of even more to put into your business, because like we already had the last webinar with Corina before this, and I know everyone's head was like, this is amazing, but now there's so much more that I can be doing and jumping into. So all great things, but all just growing your business. But with that, I guess I know that we are 2 minutes in already, and I'm going to get going because I know this is going to be a big webinar, and I am very excited for this. But welcome to the session number 2 of our Grow with Groups mini virtual event. This one's really exciting because we had to have a panel. There's so many amazing advisors who I'll introduce each of you here in a moment, but we get to work at Travify with so many different advisors. And I was like, each of these that you'll see here, I was like, hey, like Cindy, join us on this, Corina, Jeff, can you come on here? Like, and just want to keep on adding more and more and more. So it's really awesome. And I think this is going to be helpful to truly just get in and ask those questions. Because, you know, we had our session right before this. So let me show this really quick. The session before this, we had Corina. So if you got to join her, she's back. She is lending us a lot of time today. So really awesome. But that was such a great webinar, and it was recorded. So if you missed it, you know, all about getting started with groups. But if you did miss it, it's going to be on the same registration page. So all these are being recorded. But now we're in our second session. I do want to note something really important, that if this is your first time joining us today, that these first 2 sessions, so this one included and then the one previously, is all about more industry education and just how to grow your business. So we're not going to actually talk about Travify quite yet. That is going to be later this afternoon, which Bonnie is going to come in, and she's going to do 2 sessions. Again, we couldn't do 1 webinar. We had to do at least 2, and we could do more even. There's so many ways you can use Travify to grow your group's business. So that's where we're really going to get into the system and the tools and show you how you can start applying everything you learned. So stick around for that later today. It's going to be incredible. But as I mentioned, we are recording all these sessions, so we get it, you know, very busy. So if you have a friend, colleague who really wanted to join and couldn't, don't worry. As long as you registered, we'll send you recordings, but it'll also be available on our YouTube page later, and also that registration page, so you can check those out as well. Oh, I'm jumping ahead. I am going to stop sharing here because we want to go into panel mode. So let's get panel mode here. So one thing that I want to talk about, so I'm going to introduce our panel here, but how we're going to do this. So we already got a lot of questions in during the registration. So I looked at those and I tried to pull a lot of ones that I kept seeing. And then, so we have questions we already want to get into, different topics, but feel free to use that chat or the Q&A panel to ask the questions as well, because Bonnie's going to be in the back sending questions to me as well, that hopefully we're able to answer a lot of those with our panel. But without further ado, to introduce our panel here, first up, we have Jeff Coggin, who is, I like this, a wine sommelier and travel advisor at Coggin Travels. He's living the life I want to live right now. So really awesome. The wine, the travels, chef's kiss, amazing. And then we also have Corina Johnson, who's owner and agent at All Points Travel in Utah. So you probably heard from her the session before. And then we also have Cindy Miner, who's owner and founder at Small World Big Fun Travel. So welcome, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. So exciting.
Thank
Now,
you so much.
oh yeah, it's going to be, again, it's going to be so cool. But one thing that I want to ask you all first, just so we get a lay of the land here for all the different types of group travel you each specialize in, can you each just quickly give us a quick overview of your business and just what type of group travel you typically specialize in and sell? And Cindy, I'll go ahead and start with you on that.
Okay, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy. And so, to me, group travel is something I'm super passionate about. I think it is just so much fun to travel with a group of family and friends and, to have new experiences. It's something I'm really super passionate about. And to me, we've done group travel to, river cruises. We do a lot of destination weddings, just, groups of friends, bachelorette parties, girlfriend trips to places in Mexico. And to me, the whole thing really starts with, what are you passionate about selling? That's really, to me, where that group question starts as to what you want to do.
I like that. And Jeff, I'll go to you next on, because you actually I know we'll be asking you questions about kind of what you specialize in and all that later.
Okay. But yes, as you mentioned, I'm a wine sommelier. My wife is as well. We work together. We're independent contractors, and we target river cruises mostly for wine lovers. And I should, instead of saying river cruises, I should really say small ship cruises. The rivers are somewhat natural, things like Bordeaux and the Rhone. But there's wine. It's been all through Europe at this point. There's wine all through Europe, and so we target wine lovers in our community, people we know, and we do a lot of networking. We're involved in a lot of charities locally, and just a great way to get to know people. And a lot of people like wine, and it's kind of a great way to draw people in.
Yeah. It's an easy one. That's a great one. And yeah, thank you for being with us here today. And Corina, I'll let you introduce yourself again, even though I know many of you might already know wonderful Corina, but I'll let you share more.
I, again, am located in Utah, and for about 30 years have been specializing in group travel in my agency. I particularly love custom groups that I bundle and market and travel with those groups. I do a lot of affinity groups. I have some that have traveled with me 20 and 25 times. So there is, I know there's a lot of marketing questions coming in about where to find groups, how to market them, how to make them successful. So hopefully we can touch on that, because I do have some ideas, as I'm sure Cindy and Jeff do too, as far as networking in your community, like Jeff just mentioned, to really get those groups. And what's great is once you have them, by the time the trip's over the first time, if it goes well and you've planned it well, they're like, where are we going to next? And it's a self-fulfilling, you do the next one and the next one and the next one. So it's fun. It's a puzzle. And if you're going to custom groups, we were just discussing, you got to be good at math and you got to be good at logistics. And so that's what we're kind of here to help wrangle for you.
Yeah. And that's actually a great place to start is, how do you all, for your groups that you tend to specialize in or sell for, how do you find them? Where did it begin for you? Like, how did you get started? And I'll let any of you take that first.
Well, for us, it was when we started in this business, really just before the pandemic, so really kind of started after the pandemic. We didn't really have our wine niche at that point. We kind of had to learn that. I mean, we our experience with river cruises and loving the wines of Europe is what led us to be travel agents, but we hadn't really defined the niche of pairing travel with wine that we do now. And it really started, we actually got a business coach to help us define our niche. He asked what our niche was. We're like, well, it's like river cruising. And it's like, yeah, no. And he suggested, it's like, what about wine? So that's when we really started to identify our travel business with, wine lovers. And that was how, frankly, we started. We did a couple of wine dinners, and we started finding people that liked wine, that loved wine, and loved the idea of traveling on a wine themed vacation.
I would say, to kind of piggyback on what Jeff is saying, is you will be the most successful with affinity groups. Those are groups. Here's your quiz for everybody who was in my webinar. Those groups that have a common interest or a common goal in the trip. And that can come from clubs and organizations, everything from book clubs, senior citizen groups in your community, fitness groups, all kinds of different groups. But you will ultimately be the most successful if it's a group that you also have an interest in. For a long time, way back in the day, you go to certain suppliers and they say, go get those divers, go do a dive. Hey, I don't dive. I'm not interested in diving. I could sell a dive group all day long, but I don't really speak diving. So that was never really something that took off for us.
Right.
For me, I have a unique niche that I specialize in dance and theater groups, and have particular experience, love, and knowledge of that. And the reason why they're going to come to Jeff and trust his wine-oriented culinary trips is because he's a sommelier. Don't we all want to go on a wine trip with Jeff? I mean, when you have an expertise in a particular area, they're going to trust you, and you're going to have a lot more enjoyment and fulfillment putting that group together for them when it's a particular thing that you have some knowledge or interest in yourself.
Right.
You're here.
As an agency owner, I'm kind of hearing this theme, and it makes me feel really good about myself, because it really is about what you are passionate about. Right. And to me, if you've identified what do you really like to sell, what are you interested in, find your niche. But to me, one of the things that has been most successful in our getting groups off the ground is having a Pied Piper.
Yeah.
If you've got somebody that says, oh my God, I want to go drink wine in Bordeaux, let's get everybody to come with me. I mean, having that one, committed person to the group who's going to kind of wave the flag really does make things, it adds kind of a whole new level of, putting that group together.
Right.
It makes it easier, and sometimes they're.
Well, and you had said, Stephanie, where do we find the groups? Often the groups find us. They're coming to us saying, hey, can you do we have a little cooking group that gets together, and can you send us to Italy for some cooking classes? Or, I work with a local adult theater patron group. They like to go to theater. I'm working on my 18th trip for them in 7 years right now. But it's like that's one awesome. Person will come and say, can you help my club? I have a book club trip that I'm working on right now. They come to you, but it's that you need that core group, that you have that person who has the circle that they're going to help find their people. And that they're coming to you already having a core group, few group of people. Then you can go out and additionally promote it. But it really is the most successful when you do have that Pied Piper person. Right. I want to just give one quick tip, because I know there's a lot of questions about where can you find groups. There is an app it's an app and a website, if you're familiar with it, called Meetup. And Meetup go there. If you haven't been, you'll be amazed. You can find meetup groups in your community for just about anything. You want to play board games. You want to go hiking. You want to get together once a week and talk World War II history. You want to go to theater. My theater group, the gal in charge of it, has over 4,000 followers. And she does local events and trips. And so you could go out as an advisor, look at what meetup groups are in your local area and which ones might have a spin on a trip. I think every group has a spin on a trip, if you ask me. And you could ask if you could come talk to them at one of their sessions or something. I'm sorry, even the play chess or board game people, go on a river cruise and we'll have like daily board games before dinner. You know, you can spin a trip anyway, but meetup is a great place to find those affinity type groups.
Oh, I love that. I just dropped the link in there. That is game
Thank
changing
you.
right there.
Mhm.
That's
great.
awesome. Yes, I love that. So if you just start thinking through, like, because I know, Jeff, that's what we were talking about before this, is when I was chatting with you all, you know, and that was kind of your big thing with groups, is just that niche. Find that
Yeah.
niche. Find that. And yeah, so super cool. And then do any of you do the Come With Me groups? Well, I know that you do, but like, are there any that you have groups that you always tend to work with?
We do a
Yes.
lot of Come With Me groups at Small World Big Fun. And, you know, it really does add an extra layer of familiarity, and it really builds those relationships with your clients when you are in a position to be able to do that. And, you know, you have to kind of choose your product carefully when you do that, because you need to define what your job, what your expectations are. If you're going to lead the group, what is your job? You know, knowing what your responsibilities are. There are a lot of things to know about that.
100%.
Yes.
I travel with most of the custom groups that I do, especially if they're going to a destination that has a lot of logistics. Like I do a lot of New York City groups, and they've got activities and meals and tickets and this and that and busing. I am there as tour director. You know, I'm not necessarily part of the group. Now, this is different than if you were doing the typical like girls trip and Come With Me, and you are immersing yourself in the group. But you also, even in that situation, like Cindy said, you have a responsibility to kind of be the leader. Not only are you making sure that everybody's okay, everybody's getting along, does anybody have any issues that you have to deal with, but you're also checking the rooms, checking the dinner reservation for the next night, checking that the transportation for your tour is going to show up the next morning, being the one that's on time and there and making sure everybody's there. And if, you know, so it does put you in a different position, because you need to be willing and able to take on that group leader type role.
And
No question.
I think some vendors, some types of groups might be a little easier to start out with for first time group. If you want to get into the groups business and you want to do, you know, lead the group, you know, doing a river cruise or something like that, you've got people there, you've got cruise directors there to help with those kinds of things.
Or an all-inclusive resort.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, Corina, I am so impressed. I mean, you know, that is real live professional travel agenting there. That's a lot. Okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah, we don't do that. Yeah, we don't. I can't be the tour director. We do a lot of cruising, and
You know what? I love
I'm the
it.
travel
I love it.
agent.
I wish I could
I'll
do
do
it all
all
the
that.
time.
But I can't be the tour. I tried that once, and it's like, yeah, no, that's not what I'm good at.
I'm an
But you can
excellent tour
also-
guide, so we can trade off.
The one thing I would say about that is, even if you don't feel, you know, speaking to the advisors out there, you don't feel that you are comfortable in that role or enjoy that role or could do that role, then what you want to do is, if you're doing those customized trips, you want to make sure, if it's something that you have a local guide or a local destination management company / DMC that you're
Yes.
working with, who, once your group gets there, they take on that role. That you have a designated person in charge. Like I have a tour guide in New York that I have used for over 20 years. And I have a large group of 93 going at the end of June that I can't travel with. I am paying him to be there. He'll make sure their hotel check-in goes okay, check with the buses. He's more than just giving them their tours. He's going to actually manage that group for me. So you can get people in that role in destination if you don't feel comfortable with it.
Right.
That's actually what I was about to ask too, is talking about how you do work with like those suppliers. And because someone just asked too, like, so Jeff, how do you manage those if you're not directing it? But it's like when you do the cruise, you're working with the supplier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you all share a little bit more about how do you start that for someone who hasn't worked maybe with a certain supplier that they want to work with? Like, how do you approach them?
For us, I think we see them at like conferences, like our host agency conference or our consortium conference. I think, we have a BDM, not just locally, we're in the Atlanta area, but our host has a BDM as well. And that's really the starting point is go to, we do a lot of river cruises, small ship cruises, but yeah, we start with the BDM and they kind of get the ball rolling and refer you to the group sales department, where you typically get a contract from a salesperson and then you're assigned a coordinator. But you really need that BDM to promote the cruise as well, have a cruise night, do that kind of thing.
Well, and I think one of the questions I've seen pop up a couple of times is, how do you get into this and overcome objections and what are some of the pitfalls? And I really think back to what Cindy said, there's some baby steps that you can take into groups, and cruising either river or ocean and working with your all-inclusive resort brands, especially with your preferred tour operators. Your wholesalers that you use that might be an ALG brand, Classic Vacations, a Delta Vacations, their BDMs will help you, and they have group departments. There's a group department on the wholesaler level or the cruise line level, and then you have your in-destination or on cruise ship group people also, and they know what to do. Like, this is their job. They do this every day. So start there, because they're going to walk you through some of the things, and they're going to take a lot of the logistics off your plate. But it's still really important. You have to, back to my first webinar, understanding what makes a group, and that you as the advisor have to be their advocate. You've got to ask for special events. You've got to ask for certain things that you need done. You need to say, I need a space, like maybe if you're Jeff on a river cruise, I'm going to meet my group every day before dinner in the lounge on the river cruise, and we're going to talk, and I need some wine available because some wine tastings. I mean, you need to say what you would want, how that group to go, and help them help you make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I will tell y'all, I hope everybody saw Corina's talk the hour before this. If you haven't, if you've never done groups before, I'm going to tell you, go back and watch that, because this is where you have to understand, if you are newer to the travel agent business, there is, this is not, when we talk about groups, we're not talking about just collecting reservations and everybody's going at the same time. Okay. There's a lot to this.
Yes. Did I not say, I did say that.
You did. I know you did. And so you want to make sure that, this is your reputation on the line. And if you're not familiar with the different types of group contracts, you don't want to get yourself in a pickle. Okay.
And you can so fast and easy.
You really can.
Yeah.
And so this helps when you know what you're passionate about. Let's narrow that down and help you focus on one thing first.
Yeah, true. All of that. Love that. Everyone's like, yes. I do have a question though on, I'm going to pull this one live from the audience here. John had asked, because this is a big one too, is, there's also the great thing about groups is you can make good money in one trip. And so how do you, John asked, what do you recommend to evaluate early on whether an affinity group trip can be viable and make money? How do you figure out that I'm going to make money off this?
Easy.
You got to know your margins. You've got to know what your commission rates are. You've got to know, what are your costs. You've got to understand the contract, so are they giving you a net rate that you have to mark up, or are you getting just your regular percentage? Are you charging fees? Are there other things that you have to bundle in? That's really where you've got to know the math part of this, and your BDM can be super helpful with that. Your agency owner, depending on what kind of agency you're affiliated with, is also a direct number one point of contact to help you figure those things out.
And I would just add, like Cindy said, you've got to know the margin, and you have to also know your costs, because if this is a group that you are now going to be collecting in-house, if you have the ability to do that, you'll have credit card fees, you'll have processing fees, you've got all your time involved with individual invoicing, individual processing, all of that. You need to know for an affinity group, because I think the question was specifically about that, which are your more leisure-based groups, that you need to know what your minimum is. Like, I've got to have a minimum of this number to even make it work. Like if it's a come with me sort of group or a custom group, you know that you can make it go with a minimum of this number, that it will be worth your while, that you have built in enough, it'll pay for you, it will make you a little bit of money, but you have to weigh your own sensibility as far as what is making money and how much is worth it for you. But definitely it just starts with knowing your margin and looking at each individual booking and knowing the minimum number.
Right. And I really would encourage you all to, if you're new to groups, like a river cruise or something, or one of the all-inclusive resorts, starting there, knowing what your minimum is, but also understanding the perks of some group contracts. Like we haven't really talked about tour conductor credits. What does that look like? And so, there's a lot of pieces to that.
Stephanie, that was a term that I missed. And everybody who was in my past webinar, add that to your terms, a TC, a tour conductor. That's an earned complimentary space. You sell so many, you earn one. It's usually one person, not an entire room or cabin. It's usually one person for free. So you also want to be setting those benchmarks. And I'll tell you, if you're really smart, you don't give those to your group. No, you use it for you, or you just take it as extra profit.
Unless you have a Pied Piper.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've used that tour conductor credit as a little extra carrot. However,
yes,
you got to if you're going to do that, you've got to understand that depending on the vendor, free, reduced costs, there may be some, so you want to make sure that you understand the terms of what that tour conductor credit is going to cost.
Correct. It's not going to include their air.
No.
And it's not going to include port charges and taxes or any non-commissionable things. So it's only that base part. So you do have to know the value of that. So you know for sure that you're collecting from them the amount. But absolutely, when you have a Pied Piper or a custom group with a group leader, earning those tour conductor spaces or marking up so that you can cover the cost of your group leader that's with them is important.
Right.
Yeah. See,
you got to know the terms of the deal. You got to know what's the tour conductor
and
credit.
They can be
I've stood in front of groups.
Yep.
I've stood in front of groups and said, we can't do this trip unless we have 10 people go. Because that's typically when we get a tour conductor credit is 1 for 10. So you want to get that. You want to make sure that if you're going, you get an agent room, or you get a gap point with a significantly reduced price. If you're going, you have to consider the cost of your airfare. Are you going to fly in coach for $1,000 or $1,500 a person? Or are you going to fly business class? Hate flying coach. So I mean, you've got to be able to factor all those things in.
Yeah.
And look at the math. And yes, I mean that tour conductor credit. It is better to keep it for yourself. No question. It makes the economics of the group much better. But I mean, when you have a Pied Piper in there, you're ready to close the deal. I mean, it's like, hey, if you can bring 10 people, you go free. How's that sound? I mean, that, that's I think that's why the cruise line's given to us, is to do that.
Sure.
Just a quick answer to Nancy's comment that she just quoted. Not all TCs get paid out as commission. Most of like the river cruising, and I just did a Globus group to Cuba. They applied it straight across to they ask you, where do you want it applied? And I was traveling with them and they applied it right on the booking before I paid my final payment. So there are suppliers who will apply it to your total. Do you agree,
You gotta
Cindy?
know that, you
Jeff?
gotta know the fine
Yeah.
print. You gotta understand the fine print.
Yeah.
That's actually a perfect segue to the question I was going to ask, because I was going to ask, what are some of your favorite suppliers? Because I know specifically, there were a few people who asked about like river cruises specifically. So Jeff, I'll let you share the ones you typically work with, but I'd love to hear the suppliers you typically all work with and have found to be easy with groups.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised if I say I'm a Waterways. I mean,
No,
they
they're
win every
mine.
award, and
Yeah.
you we like the Emerald new ocean yachts, 100-passenger ocean yachts. What we're doing, we embark in Rome on Saturday. Like I say, we like small ships. Avalon, somebody mentioned Globus. We love Avalon as well. Those would be they're probably our main three. But we appreciate all our suppliers, really. I mean, the fact that we may not book all of them, but we still appreciate that they're all there.
Right.
My spin on that would also, I will second AMA Waterways all the way, especially for groups and customer service. Avalon is probably our number 2 for river cruising. And I love Globus. If we're going to do escorted, we'll usually work, but that's not escorted. Booking a group on an escorted tour is a really good way maybe to inch into some international destinations, especially if you haven't been much yourself. Do that. So you're piggybacking on an already scheduled itinerary, like with Globus, but you're taking your own little small group with you, and that can be a nice way. I like to use, generally for my fun and sun all-inclusives, if I'm doing contracted, I will almost always use an ALG brand. FunJet is our go-to because I love their VAX group management tool. And they will get the contracts for me and the pricing at basically their contracted pricing usually or better. And so I usually will try to use a wholesaler if I'm doing fun and sun.
We've worked with Classic. AMA Waterways, hands down, number 1. But Classic, GoGo / and Voyage, there's a lot of transitioning going on over there. But a lot of those also have tools to make administering your group a whole lot simpler, for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so many good ones. And I'd like to shout out that all those really work with Travify. Just throw that out there.
They do.
Yeah. So it works very well. One thing before I have a couple questions that I'm really excited to ask, but one thing that I want to touch on too is more like, speaking of Travify systems and tools, and what are, like, I know we could talk forever on this stuff, but what are some of your favorite tips on like staying organized?
Do not try to do a group without understanding what your process is, having a process, knowing the tools, knowing the timeline, understanding the steps. If you try to wing it, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to drop a ball, and it's going to make you nuts and get you in trouble. So
it could cost you money if you miss some cutoff dates. For
sure. Because especially if you've signed a contract.
Yeah.
So you really, really, really want to understand what that process is before you jump into groups.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to know, you got to have the whole trip insurance thing lined up. It's like you get the invoice, you do the trip insurance. When can you book the air? You want to book the air through the cruise. I mean, it's hard work. It's a lot of details. When you have a whole bunch of people, it does make it a little easier to have to research, one trip at a time type thing. It's a different kind of work, if you will. But the details in having a process is so important. And Travify really helps with that.
It sure does.
Yeah. Thing we do, we put that invoice in the Travify.
Yeah.
Especially if you are signing contracts, and this would go for cruise and river cruise contracts as well. You have dates. You have what's called cutoff dates. You have dates that there might be with hotel contracts. You have dates that there might be a second or third payment due. You have to know how you're going to keep your timeline. And I plot everything on an electronic calendar and I take notes. But how are you going to promote the trip? Travelify gives a lot of really good tools for that. I think the landing pages are golden. They really, really make, now I don't have Travelify as my main website. I have a regular website, you know, but I use the landing pages through Travelify to be group specific. And then within there, they can link to a form. You can create forms in Travelify. I have a different form. I use a program called FormSite that I've used for years and years that just has a little bit more functionality. I've expressed those concerns to Travelify, but plus I'm just used to it because it's what I use. But I promote my groups that way, and I learned the hard way long ago that if you can get as much information and questions answered, boom, right off the bat, and how they're submitting their information to you, that, like Cindy said, then you're not getting, like, you got their names and their birth dates and you got them booked, but oh gosh, I need to know if they have mobility problems or dietary restrictions, or do they want air or not want air? So now I have to go ask everybody if they want air booked with their package, or do they want insurance or don't want insurance? You know, so you think through all those things that you can put on your one registration form where they are opting in writing, yes, no to these things. Yes, I want that. Yes, no, I don't. I want extra nights. No, I don't. You know, and you get as much information up front. And then for me, I create a group email, you know, that you BCC. Please don't ever copy group addresses out to the whole group. Always put them in a BCC.
Right.
I learned that the hard way, booking groups early on, 25 or so years ago. But I make a group email and then I plot out, okay, about this date, I need to send them these reminders about the next payment, this information, whatever the case, you know, and you have maybe 2 or 3 targeted emails before your last, like, travel documents, travel details, all of that. So you do have to sort of work out how you're going to collect their information, collect their payments, and not make yourself crazy. Because if you have a group that is 50, 60, 100 people, and you're trying to talk to them all on the phone, or you're trying to gather up information, it can be a mess.
Yeah. And that's why Travelify for us has been just game changer in terms of the landing pages and having a landing page that features all of the things that somebody would want to know if they're interested in joining your group. But also, you know, the itineraries, using that as, you know, kind of like just a little point of contact for everybody, just with the general overview of here's what we're going to do, and sharing information in one place that never changes. You know, that link is never going to change. It's always up to date. I love that. But, you know, it is the thing that I hope we have impressed on everybody is really, you know, I can talk process on groups all freaking day long, but really the thing about it is understanding how to keep yourself protected, you know, because, you know, as a business person, as owning if you're an independent contractor, as owning your own business, you want to think about, you know, if you're going to dive into this new thing, what are the pitfalls? What do you need to do to protect your business as well?
Huge one. And I know that in the next webinar sessions, we will be sharing examples and all that good stuff. But I know also, Corina, you were sharing, or I think it's your Facebook page. If they go to your Facebook page, you have landing pages, because someone was asking if we could share examples. But
I do. If you wanted to see how I've used it, if you go to my Facebook, which is Corina Johnson, and then in parentheses, I think it says travel agent, All Points Travel. I'm happy to friend you there. You can reach out to me. It's my professional page. But a couple of posts ago, scroll down, I think it's maybe the 3rd post down, I posted 2 trips for 2025, 2 small group trips that we're promoting, and both of them have a Travelify landing page and then a FormSite registration form. And you're happy to check those out and just see how I've used it and how all the information that I get from my groups right up front.
One of the keys for us has been using the Travelify itineraries to keep clients from going to a supplier website to see the itinerary.
That's true.
We avoid that at all costs. You got to keep it away.
Us too.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's very handy for so many things. So the question I was going to ask you, I'm going to kind of flip it a little bit because I just got a new one since we were talking about like legal stuff and all that. But is there things you wish you knew related to your own E&O insurance, other legal elements involved in running or leading your own groups, like anything that, or is it just kind of, or have you learned any lessons from dealing
Oh,
with all
Lord,
of that?
so many.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what are
I
the
mean, the more
biggest
you do it,
ones?
the more you do it,
I
the better
will-
you get at it.
Yeah. I will say the biggest lesson that I have learned would apply to if you're doing custom groups where you have a set itinerary that people are buying into. The biggest lesson that I learned early on is do not a la carte your group. You do not break out the pieces. If somebody says, well, I've been there, if you are including something in a group package and you have a full bundled price and they say, well, I did that last time I was there, I don't want to do it, can you take that out? The answer is adamantly no. And do not go down the rabbit hole of a la carting your price. And let me put you back to the Globus example. You know, you go on an escorted tour, they don't tell you how much the hotel price was or how much that tour was, or I was in Rome before and I did a walking tour, so I'm not interested in that. So can you credit that to me? No, if you buy the package price, you get what you get. Whether or not you participate or not is up to you. But that was really, truly one of the biggest lessons I learned the hard way with the very first custom group I did that had 600 people.
Oh,
And
whoa.
that's crazy.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
Crazy.
600 people.
Wow. Oh my
That's like,
God.
it's like years,
Yeah.
it's a decade's worth.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
here's the other thing I'm going to
I
tell you.
learned all the lessons.
Because we get those questions a lot. Well, can you give me a breakdown on the price?
Right.
Well, how do you respond to that question? Can you give me a breakdown on the price? No, I'm sorry, I can't. This is a package price.
Right.
I cannot break it down for you.
Well, and I'll even expand on that a little bit and just say, I can't break it down with you because these are private contracted pricing.
Right.
They're not available. The price is not available to you as a general consumer. They're contracted in private and they're based on me bundling a package for you. So I recommend to people, because they still get hung up about that, I said the easiest way for you to compare is just take it and go try to book the pieces on your own and see
Yeah.
what you could do as a published price. That's the way you can compare.
Because if they're going to push you on that, they're probably
Right.
not your client.
You don't want them. Yeah.
No, you don't want them. Let them
No.
go. Let them go.
I mean, from us, I mean, Alma has great pre and post extensions, and for us, we don't always do it, but you know, we really try to use their stuff versus
Yeah.
recreating it ourselves.
Yeah. They do. And with cruising and with all-inclusive resorts, again, it's a lot easier because you have more straightforward pieces and they will give you a lot of support for groups.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the value add for you, you know, they have to understand that you're managing the group, that you're planning events that are just for the group. You know, if they on the off chance on a weekend check the ALMA price and they're like, well, Jeff, they offered a thing and it was $100 off per person. Well, okay, but you won't be part of our group. You won't get the wine experience that we're doing, and you won't be with our group after. You know, it's a give and take, and you just have to be upfront with people and explain why the value of actually buying into the group is a good thing.
Mhm.
Having a
If
host.
they're nickel
and-
and diming you on that,
Yeah,
they're probably not your client.
yeah,
Launch 'em.
Gotta go.
Let them go.
yeah.
No, I was actually going to start asking questions about just dealing with, you know, the clients, the travelers. So what about when you already are they're booking everything? How do you stay connected with them? Because if they're booking with you, you know, like a year in advance and they want updates, they have questions specific, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with all of the people coming at you for trips that are down the line?
You know, for us, I mean, if we're doing it way in advance, I mean, I kind of tell them, it's like, you know, okay, you know, we got the deposit placed, we did the trip insurance thing, we put the pre or the post on or whatever. And it's like, hey, we'll talk again in, you know, August when we can start looking at airline tickets. And I think if you create that expectation, that and honestly, we know a lot of the people, we see them in town and everything. And I try to resist the urge to talk about the trip every time I see them. I mean, it's like, we have a normal life and relationship here. We don't have to talk about travel every time we see each other.
I agree. You just have to be really upfront with them about the planning process and when they can expect more information from you. I mentioned that I do a lot of New York City groups, and I'm booking some now. I book some student groups now that won't travel till March or April of next year. Well, those eager beaver moms already want to know, about all the sites and what about this and what about tickets and blah, blah, blah. And some of the things are not even available yet for sale. And so you just have to be really upfront with them. And again, if you look, you'll see if you look at my forms for my groups, they're like this long. I'm given information and I'm getting information from them, and then I will do a big email to them, and I will set out a timeline of, like Jeff said, about when they could expect to hear from me again. And that, yes, they'll get more details. I think as people get closer, you get to that sort of 60 days before, 90 days before, they start getting really anxious. Mm-hmm. And you just have to field some of those questions, but you can also still put them off. I've got more information on that for the whole group coming next week. Please be patient, kind of.
Well, and I think this is one of the things that Travify, having a group itinerary, is one of the best tools you can have, because it's all right there and the link never changes. And you can set up that little chat feature. But, setting expectations up front, letting them know when to expect, and recognizing, I saw somebody put in there a suggestion about setting up Facebook groups. Absolutely. Anything that I can do to kind of keep that excitement going, I'm going to do. Do we have we're going to talk about how to pack in a carry-on, all those kinds of things. And so, but giving them something in writing or repeatedly sharing that Travify itinerary link with them is going to help them feel more secure. It's going to save you a ton of time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Once we have flights, we've already saved the invoice, the insurance information, and the itinerary. Once we have the flights, we send them the email invite link. Yep. And we tell them that we'll continue to update this as we go, as we get more information.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so nice having that, isn't it? Travify, it's great. Yeah, it is. Like, it's so nice.
Do it in Microsoft Word. Could you imagine?
Yeah, and you'd have to resend, then you would have to really.
Which is what we used to have to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, it's so great. It's so great. And like I said, I implemented Travify for groups specifically too, so they could have it during travel, and encourage them all to download the app. So if you're in a big group and you've got a structured itinerary, I expect everybody to be looking at their itinerary every day, telling you what time you need to be someplace,
Yep. Using the app, all the things.
Yeah. It's amazing how many of the cruise lines don't have their own app. I mean, it shocks me. I mean,
or they have it, but you can't use it till you're on the cruise.
Well, yeah, that too. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, the app thing is critical for us. And I actually look at the number of views on the app. I mean, for our group, I sent like the final itineraries last week, and I was looking at some of these, and they went from from 15 views to 41 views in a week, if you will. I mean, so they're looking at it a lot. I mean, it's not unusual for people to look at the itinerary 100 times.
And just generally, we do travel documents for everybody still. And we do documents packets and a few little gift items from our agency. And I can't believe the number of people who still want the paper. And so having the option to print the PDF version, if you've ever tried to travel with cruise documents too, they're like 25 pages long, and all you really need to know is where's my itinerary buried in all that. So when you can have your Travify itinerary that lays out all the pertinent reminders, tips, all of that, and some of them like it printed, and you've got that PDF option too.
I want to ask you something about this, because there were even earlier on multiple people asking about gifts. Do you give gifts? So Corina, you do give some gifts.
We do. We do. We have some nice luggage tags. I always keep some kind of bag or pouch or something like that. We have a few varied things that we'll get, and then it depends on the size of the trip. And sometimes for groups, often for groups, I will customize something just for the group, whether it be a bag. I've done t-shirts, we've done hats, we've done messenger bags. It depends. When I do that for custom groups, I'm also adding in, which even if you're working with a wholesaler, remember most of them give you that change your commission amount where you can pad on top of whatever that price is you've contacted that. Add in enough to pay for a group amenity of some sort. So we do at minimum give them a documents packet and some luggage tags, and then other things depending on how much they've spent.
That's cool.
Mhm.
Okay, so I have another question. This might be the one that takes us home. But if we'll see, I'll try to sneak two in here. But Kelly asked a really good question here, and there's other people like, yes, ask that. Do all of you only do groups? And if so, do you have advisors on your team that take on individual bookings? Because I think the thing everyone's thinking is how much time it takes. So should they only focus on groups, or should it be supplemented?
What do you love to sell? What do you love to sell? Jeff loves to take groups to sell small ship cruising where you go and drink wine. Man, will Jeff sell an individual person? I bet you his answer is yes, he will.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I love groups. I'm passionate about groups because if you can't tell, I'm an extrovert and I like for all my people to go with me. Okay. But it really, so yes, we do have, do I sell the kind of, so, but yes, there are agents who do both. It really just kind of depends on what makes you happy. What do you feel like's worth your time?
I completely agree with Cindy. In 30 years of selling groups, I've managed to have 2 years pre-COVID where I said, I'm only doing groups because my FIT people get lost in the shuffle, because I might have 10 or 12 or 15 groups I'm juggling at one time. But post-COVID, that hasn't been, because we've just been slammed with FITs. So my short answer is yes. And we sell everything. I also have a storefront. So I have 3 other advisors that work in the office with me who do flexible groups. I've got one that specializes in destination weddings, or we'll do a flexible group for any big like multi-gen family, but everybody sells FITs as well.
Well, that's one of the great things about doing groups is that it throws off, tons of other, business from referrals and everything else. But yeah, this is we're at that inflection point ourselves here where, when we promote our groups and when we get one, we got the process down, right? I mean, it's boom, boom, boom. There's no research. And we do have some sub agents that we refer things to. And that's very helpful. We've been talking about charging fees, but it's hard because, we're sitting here, my wife and I, we work together and we're talking about, we got to, these FIT things, we got to do something about it. And then, get a call yesterday, a guy that I know, is pretty well off, wants 20 days in Italy. So, well, of course I'm going to do that. I mean, so it's, if you want to grow your business, I think it's important that you either charge fees, significant fees, or have a sub agent system or somebody refer, some of the, less lucrative opportunities that get thrown off by your group business.
You gotta have a process and you gotta have help. I mean, when you're talking about 10 to 15 groups a year and 600 people groups like Corina's doing, Corina knows what she's doing. And I bet you she's got some people who kind of help back her up in a lot of different ways. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it does take help.
Yeah, it really does if you get to that level. So
Stephanie, I'm just noticing a bunch of questions and chat that are coming in about what's an FIT, what's a flexible group, what do you mean by that, what minimum group size do you do? I would just encourage all of you asking about that terminology, that these are things we covered in the first webinar that I did very specifically. So if you weren't there, please try to jump onto that link when it's available, because that will help clear up some of those things that we're talking about that are that you have questions about.
I'm putting it in right now because the recording is done rendering. It's ready. So okay, there we go. I just put it in there. Yes, that's very important. Because there's so much to know about groups. We all know that. But I have a final question here though, is with your groups. So once you take them on the group, because we've been talking about this too, with you get, from your group trip, you might start getting some FITs from that or different, but how do you keep marketing to your clients after a group trip?
That I'm not sure is a really simple question to answer. I mean, it really is about building the relationship with your client. If they are your ideal client, if these are people who have used you in the past, you want to take the steps to continue to nurture that relationship with that client. And we can talk about marketing. That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other
I know.
thing.
I shouldn't have thrown that on you 5 minutes.
I was going to say that. Isn't there another call for that? I think there's another call for that coming up, isn't there? That really has to do with, thanking people for their business and then continuing to say, where do you want to go next? What else is on your bucket list? Come on, let's go.
Yeah, I think putting them on an email list is good. We mentioned that I have a professional Facebook profile and Instagram profile, and I friend everybody. I friend all of our clients. I friend my group members for sure. And I get a lot of people watching there, and it drives a lot more business. So it's just finding ways to keep your agency in front of them, and giving them ideas that are outside of the group. Even to this day, some people are like, they travel with my one group and don't know that I do anything else.
Right.
So it's all, like, I didn't know you could book my Hawaii trip. Well, but it's just,
That's the downside of it
education and keeping yourself in front of their face as much as you can.
Yeah.
Email,
social media.
Free, and it is great.
Everybody out there,
email.
Every single person on this call, you are business owners. You are answering the questions and the challenges that we all face every day. And I'm just tickled to death that that you found a product that's as good as Travify is to help manage some of these aspects of your business, because it's a life changer for us, hands down.
Yeah.
Can I just answer one quick thing really fast?
I saw
Marco's question about how do you find a good DMC or supplier to work with. And the one thing I would say is join some Facebook groups. There are some good ones out there. Travel agents selling Scotland, travel agents selling Italy, travel agents selling Europe, travel agents selling Caribbean. And those are good places to ask those questions. Like, hey guys, do you have a DMC for a group of this size? You will have advisors who specialize in those areas who will answer and give you recommendations. That's the first and easy answer that I would say, because the world is a very, very big place and there's endless suppliers. So that's a hard question to answer in just this call.
I know. All these questions could be so much. This hour just flew. I realized what time it is. I was like, oh my gosh. And there's so many things we didn't even get to cover. And so before we start to wrap up, is there anything that anyone wants to say just to make sure?
There were a couple of questions about fees that we didn't get. And do we charge fees? For me, the answer, it depends on the group, but fees, if you're not charging fees, let's talk about that, because you are professionals and you deserve to be compensated for the research and the time that you put into putting that together. So if they don't travel, you don't get paid. That's where the fee comes in. Okay.
Nice. Okay. I know that was one of the ones I really wanted to ask, and I was like, there's not much time. That would be.
That's another whole topic as well. So, right.
It really is. And actually, if you go to academy.travify.com, we did a fees webinar. It was last year, so that hasn't been a full year, but we broke down, we took examples of what people had done fees on. In fact, I'm going to go find it as I multitask here, because it was really good. It was helpful if you are getting started with fees, just so then that way you kind of know what other people, you can hear what other people are doing. All that good stuff. Okay, now I can't find it, of course, but academy.travify.com. You can find if you search fees in there. But one thing that I want to do is I'm going to share my screen here really quick because this was so incredible. Seriously, thank you so much, this panel. And today, and we're only halfway done. And I love how, you know, we really talked about a lot of the ins and outs, not all of it, because there's still so much more, but so many of the ins and outs to getting started with groups, or if you're already doing them, some ideas and tips. But the next thing that we're going to be talking about today, so we'll give you an hour to hang out, and then we're going to be back on. Bonnie's going to be presenting and talk about Travify specifically on how you can organize your group trips with Travify's tools. So we're going to first talk about the organizing part, and then that second webinar, the last one, is going to be about marketing. So that's where we're going to really focus in on those landing pages and all of that. So it's going to be really fun. So make sure you join us for that. And then keep in mind too, we did record all of these so you can find them at that same registration page that we would have went to. And then finally, the last thing I'll say too is if you aren't already using Travify, you could go to travify.com and start a free trial, and you can start playing with it now. And like as we teach you some things later this afternoon or whatever time zone it might be in, you can really start putting it to work and all that good stuff. So thank you so much again, everyone. And to our amazing panelists, seriously, so good. So thank you for spending time with us and sharing your wealth of knowledge and expertise. It's really appreciated.
Mhm.
So
It was fun. Thanks for
yeah,
asking.
that was a good time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
See you all later.
Bye-bye.
See ya.